Who are you really? If you've been watching the TV show Severance, it puts this question into focus in a very weird but kind of amazing way in that it takes this premise of splitting a person's brain into two parts and creating two versions of this same person, separated and detached but still connected in that same body. And after coming across this interesting concept on Reddit from the fans, I want to go into this even further because of something called the you are theory. Spoilers ahead.
You are in fact the you I most affectionately welcome on this journey. We've taken but the first step in discovering which unique and beautiful you are.
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to?
The you are theory or concept is this idea that you as a person have this inner child. It's the version of you that you were when you were young, raw, and unmodified by the world. As time goes on, this inner child becomes replaced with an older version of yourself, which takes over you as you become an adult. The inner child has morphed into the outer adult, or some could say is still separated and is lingering somewhere in the background. But funnily enough, The Simpsons actually showed this idea before with an episode about Bart's inner child. And no, I'm not just doing a Simpsons predicted it kind of bit, but rather it just reminds me of basically that same idea and moreover why it's relevant when it comes to the TV show Severance.
Now, close your eyes for a moment and really listen to that inner voice inside, your inner child. Listen, what's he saying?
Stay the course, Big Ned. You're doing super.
Food goes in here. It sure does.
The inner child is, some would say, the person we perhaps truly want to be, the person we used to be and now long to be again in the future. It's about recognizing the beautiful parts of who we were with all the feelings and joys and interests we had as kids, which we then feel like get uprooted as we get older and have our innocence be corrupted by the hard world around us. But how exactly does this relate to Severance? Well, the idea is that it's just like there are two versions of you with this theory, the inner child and the older adult, which is what Severance could actually be literally about in trying to recreate the same thing. In the show, the versions who are severed are called the Innies, and the versions who were there quote-unquote originally and who decided to get severed are called the Outies. Do you see where I'm getting at? These Innies are perhaps the inner child versions of their Outies. Maybe that's even why they are called Innies, inner child. But to support this one step further, let's examine the versions of these Innies inside of Severance and what they are like in their characters. Because if the idea of them being an inner child is sort of to have more weight in this relation, then it should go to show that these Innies are meant to feel like the inner children of their Outies, who are those versions of ourselves with all of the beautiful parts we once had but buried deep inside. Those deep desires and feelings we once shared but now hide away or have lost, and maybe even some would say are the best versions of ourselves. Let's look at one of these Innies, starting with Dylan.
Shit.
On the outside, his outie isn't living his best life. Struggling to find and hold down a job, he relies more so on the care and support from his adoring wife, who, although loves her husband, acknowledges that he is a little bit lost in life.
He dumb?
No.
He a dick?
No.
What is wrong with him?
Oh, nothing's wrong with him. He never quite found his thing.
In direct contrast, his Innie on the inside actually is almost the exact opposite, who not only has a job and purpose, but is more confident, more self-assured, and more capable with his words and actions to stand up for himself and for others. It's the polar opposites of insecurity and confidence, of a man who is a sidekick on the outside and one who is a badass hero on the inside. But what about the others? Well, just briefly, another Innie called Irving has finally experienced what it's like to feel loved as a person and as a gay man who on the outside is implied was someone who was closeted and hiding his true self from the world. Likewise with the Innie Helly, her father on the outside tells her how he is disappointed with her as an adult because he used to see something in her when she was younger, but it seems to have been reawakened only when he meets her Innie.
I used to see care in her, but he left her as she grew.
Sound like a great dad.
I had others in the shadows, but he wasn't in them either.
The only Innie that doesn't have such a drastic polar change is actually the main character, Mark S, whose Innie feels more complicated to compare to his outie. Both versions feel quite confident and are quite smart. They're bright individuals and who long to feel and find true love. But the only difference here being is that Mark's outie lost himself when his wife died. So on the outside, he becomes depressed and haunted by the world around him, making it hard for him to actually feel like he wants to stay alive. So he chooses to sever to at least make life feel bearable again and to perhaps bring back a version of himself that doesn't know that pain of love lost and of heartbreak. Someone whose innocence hasn't been destroyed, whose love for life hasn't been battered. Ultimately, like a child who hasn't been hurt.
You know, he hid all of her stuff in my basement. Because it was easier pretending that she never existed.
In these ways, you could still say even Mark's Innie is a representation of his inner child, the person that he was before he lost his wife, and hell, maybe even before he had ever met her in the first place. He is a more determined man on the inside than on the outside, someone with drive and ambition, a purpose, and more importantly, someone who could feel love again. But what is the point of all of this? Why would the company responsible for creating Severed People be doing all of this at all? I'll make another video covering this in part 2, but until then, thanks for those on Reddit who brought this to my attention, and thank you also for watching. I'll see you in the next one.